Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining me. So, guys, peace brings weakness and weakness brings war. I heard it somewhere else. I can't remember what I was watching or what I was listening to, but I thought, you know what, that is a perfect introduction for my video on how we've got to where we are with the British military and how everybody on mainstream media to every alternative media source, everybody is saying that the British military is not ready to fight a war with Russia. So I want to talk about that today, guys, all right, and put my thoughts into this. But interestingly enough as well, I was at my friend's house last night, excuse me, and basically my friend works for a construction company. They've just got a job working for like a subcontractor of somebody for the MOD. Basically, now I started laughing with him because I understand the problems working with the MOD. So he said to me, he said, yeah, you know, the MOD said to me that they need plant for servicing vehicles. So I said, well, what vehicles? And they said, oh, we can't tell you. I said, well, how am I supposed to give it you? And then the MOD said, oh, just tell me how much it cost. So my friend's like, well, what do you mean? Is it motorbikes? Is it trucks? Is it tanks? Is it, you know, I guess warships are vehicles? He said, oh no, they're land vehicles, but that's all we can tell you. So he said, well, how heavy is it? He says, oh, we can't tell you that either. So he's like, oh, right, okay, whatever. So, you know, he went away and he said, right, you got the heaviest. He thought, right, we'll go for the heaviest and see what they say. So he went back to them, you know, with all the equipment to lift these vehicles, service, whatever. Remember, he doesn't know what vehicles they're supposed to be servicing yet. He said, right, this is how much it costs and this is what it is. Then the MOD said, ah, right, okay, we need it to be mobile as well. So he's like, right, okay, is there anything else you want with this mobility? So they're like, well, we can't tell you. So my friend's like, guys, listen, you know, I'm trying to give you what you want. You're paying me, so tell me what you want, and you know, I'll make that happen because you're paying me and that's what you're paying for me. And they said, oh, we can't tell you, it's you know, it's under the Official Secrets Act. And you know, I totally get it that some things need to be kept secret, but I also get the amount of red tape and bureaucracy that is put around, you know, that the MOD put on themselves, and just nothing, you know, nothing happens. So now I told them a story of when I was in Afghanistan. I may have said this before. We was in Afghanistan in the military. We're in these barrack blocks. Bear in mind, we had fully qualified Royal Engineers with us, okay? And in that Royal Engineer course, they have done the light bulb changing course. It's a very strenuous course. Not everyone passes. Only the top few percent manage to pass. That qualifies them to change the screw-in bulbs and the bayonet bulbs. They've done it. They're qualified, fully qualified Royal Engineers. But they weren't allowed. They weren't allowed to change the light bulbs because it was on contract with the building schedule or something. So if a light bulb went, you had to send in a works request form. Then that would get actioned by somebody. It had to be signed off by somebody. You know, bear in mind, this had to be signed off by like your like the officer commanding, and he's trying to, you know, he's trying to plan wars and attacks and stuff, and now he's trying to sign for a light bulb being changed. Anyway, and then they'd send out some, you know, a local guy, usually like an Afghani or something, who they trained up how to change light bulbs. So you can see just the ridiculous amount of red tape that the MOD inflict on themselves. And the amount of money that is wasted, honestly, it's ridiculous. Now, I know I did a video like a couple of, I think yesterday or maybe the day before, about the military-industrial complex. And I was focusing on the companies that make, you know, do lethality stuff. That's not where the wastage is gone. There's so much oversight over that. There's so much, there is wastage, but it's not, there is wastage, but it goes on salaries, but that's another argument. The real wastage of money just being totally wasted and going nowhere is in the construction of the MOD things. Like, basically what I'm talking about now, so much is wasted because there is no oversight to this. when you're talking about missiles and bombs and things that explode, everybody wants to get in there and make sure that there's oversight. But it's the things that go under the radar that nobody cares about, like changing tyres, changing light bulbs, concrete mixers, all this sort of stuff that just adds to the MOD bill, and it's absolutely ridiculous. So brings me on to the video, guys, and I want to talk about, you know, the state of the British military to fight Russia. Because let's be under no illusion, you know, the peace dividend is now over. It's over, it's gone, it's not coming back, it's time to spend, and it's time for, you know, very difficult decisions. The peace dividend was a phrase, I think it was like coined or it first came about with Bush Senior and Maggie Thatcher at the end of the Cold War, the collapse of the Soviet Union. You know, they said, right, the peace dividend is over. The Cold War is over. We have now a peace dividend, so we don't need to be spending as much on militaries. But what we've seen in the UK over the past, well, I mean, I think since the fall of the Soviet Union, this really ratcheted up when Tony Blair was in the Labour Party back in, oh goodness, what was it, like, I don't know, 97, I want to say, maybe 96, I don't know, maybe earlier, I don't know, guys, but round about when Tony Blair took over, then you started to see the big cuts in the military. So it's come out in an article written by Lieutenant Colonel Crawford. He's an ex-tank regiment guy. He's come out and he said Britain's tanks would be wiped out in 2 weeks with a war with Russia. Why? The peace dividend's over, guys, okay? Our allies no longer see us as a tier one military. That's not to say that our infantry is not tier one, because our infantry is, and I'll come on, if I'll touch on that at the end, guys, how our infantry could be our whole military saving grace. So yeah, the UK are no longer considered a tier one military ally just because of cuts and cuts and cuts, because of inefficiencies in procurement. You know, all these things are adding up now, and we've got a very small amount of tanks. I've heard different amounts, and it's hard to get the obviously because of secrecy. It's hard to get the right amount, but I've heard we've got 200 tanks. I've heard we've got 200, but 100 of them are not working and are not serviceable, so that leaves us with 100. The reality is I can't find the information online for obvious reasons. You know, if I can find it, our enemies can find it. But that's the reality, guys. Comes down to government cuts. So what else have our army got to look forward to? Unfit homes, you know. And this really is, it shouldn't be happening it just shouldn't be happening. So homes in the military homes that soldiers rent off the military, you know, let's bear in mind that these homes have been paid for already by taxpayers. So the people who are paying rent, the MOD shouldn't be making a profit on them. That money that goes towards rent should literally be for upkeep of that building. So they're plagued with damp, mould, gas and electric faults, pest infestations, all sorts of this stuff, guys. Now, you can imagine if you're, I don't know, if you're a soldier and you're living in this home with your family and you've got some of those problems, and then you go away on a deployment, imagine how that's going to affect your morale, you know, knowing that your kids are living in potentially substandard conditions, you know, that you've got damp, mould, all sorts of stuff, and it's not being fixed. And, you know, and when you try to fix this, you know, you get a wall of red tape and bureaucracy. Oh, the damp, that's done by this contractor, but that's subcontracted to another contractor, and you have to contact them direct. Then you contact them direct and you say, no, we're subcontracted, you need to contract the other one. And it's just round and round. It's like on being on an absolute merry-go-round that you don't want to be on and you just want to get off. This all comes down to, again, bad management and no foresight. So they're managed terribly, you know, absolutely terribly, these military buildings. There's been government sell-offs, so, you know, when the government needs a quick bit of cash, they'll sell off a load of the buildings that they've bought to some contractor. They'll get a bad deal, but you know what, at least it's something. Government cuts, again, the more the government cuts and cuts and cuts and makes cuts to the military, the less it's going to have. You know, it's simple economics. If you don't give somebody enough money, they can't buy stuff. Absolutely simple. It's a disgrace. We should not be giving our soldiers substandard, you know, substandard accommodation. That's, you know, we're talking about the houses there. Now, what I mean married quarters. Now, the blocks and the accommodation, guys, when we talk about immigration and these blocks in Shorncliffe where the immigrants have been sent, I remember when I was in the military, I was in Connaught Barracks, and we first moved in there, and when the health and safety moved in, they said, look, it's unfit for human inhabitants, but that was totally okay to put an infantry battalion in there. And then, you know, I'm watching it on the news now that you've got these migrants coming over from, I don't know, fleeing the war in France. You know, these migrants coming over, and they say it's substandard, they don't like it, they don't want to be there, they're setting fire to things. And I have to look at this and I have to think, wow, you know what? The government are putting these guys up in hotels, but that same accommodation was perfectly fine for our own soldiers. Those young men, often from working class backgrounds, who say, do you know what, guys? I actually want to devote myself to this country and I want to potentially sacrifice for my country. And it just makes, you know, the whole accommodation thing, guys, it makes me absolutely sick to the core that it's being managed like this. And, you know, I've got first-hand experience of this. The actual barracks in Shorncliffe, where I think the immigrants burnt it down, that actual barracks, it's where the Gurkhas were back in, like, I think 2002 or something. That was like a really nice barracks. If you went there, you was like, wow, you know, these Gurkhas have got a really nice barracks. It's really nice, it's clean, they've got everything. Our barracks in Connaught Barracks, it was like, you know, it was pretty brutal, guys, I'm not going to lie. Yeah, you know, I'm not going to go into that, but the way the government handles this really is disgusting. And you know, I think the military, they really do need to have something like a union, somebody who can stand up for them. I wanted to be that person. You know, I did the petition to increase military pay. I've done lots of things for the military. I want the military to have a better deal, and I will give whatever I can to make that happen. The petition for the petition got cancelled because the election was called. As soon as the election's done, guys, I'll start that up again, and I will be campaigning to get the military more money in their pockets. And I don't mean more money for the military industrial complex. I mean more money for, you know, more money in their pockets. So more money in salaries, more money in bonuses, more money that they can actually buy stuff with. And then we come on to the food quality. Now, the food quality in the military, when I joined, it was really good, you know, it was brilliant, guys. You know, you get 3 meals a day, they were always good, substantial, there was always plenty to eat. But then, you know, when I was leaving the military, it started to go out to private contractors. Now, I've said this so many times, privatisation without competition is not privatisation. It's literally the definition of socialism. That's what you get, guys, all right? So when there's all these people coming out and saying, oh, but it's been privatised, look what happens when you privatise something. No, that's not privatising. You need to have competition. You need to have 2 vendors, because they'll be competing against each other to give you guys a better product, because if they give you guys a better product, they get paid. Because guess what? People don't spend their money on the people that they don't want because they're giving a bad product. And this happens in so many walks of life, guys, okay? You know, and people don't really, I think there's not many people, well, a lot of people understand it, but I don't think they understand it really. There's so many examples I can give you, but I want to keep this onto the military. So the food quality has just really, really gone down in the military. And it's because the military, again, they tried to make cuts. They thought, right, okay, we can get rid of our catering corps, or, you know, really condense our catering corps, and pull in contractors, and then those contractors can make money and we don't have to pay our salaries and everybody's happy. But the reality is the food quality has gone down, and guys, you know, a military marches on his stomach or her stomach. There's not, you know, the morale you get when like in Iraq, for example, when we used to come back after patrol and we went to the, you know, we went for dinner, the afternoon meal. It was absolute, it was brilliant, guys, you know, it was just a really good quality food. Now, can you imagine going out on patrol or doing something or coming back and it's been a hard day and then you come back and you've got some soggy beans or something to look forward to. Guys, it's not on. We need to do better for our military. We have a moral obligation to do better. And you know what, guys? With the amount of money this government's spending on giving, you know, for example, migrant hotels, giving money to other countries, we really should look after our own military better than we are doing. But yeah, guys, privatisation without competition is not privatised. Look at the water. Look at the, I know I'm segueing again. Look at the, you know, the issues with the water companies that I've been, you know, highlighting to you guys for so long. The water companies have gone so bad because they've been privatised, but there's no competition. So there you go again. Another example of when you privatise something but don't give competition. The rail networks, you've privatised them, but you've only given like one or two but the operators there's no competition on those regions for the operators. Again, guys, you know, it's absolutely disgusting. So, kit and equipment, well, you know, there's so much out there about the kit and equipment for the military at the moment. What I want to focus on is and I've done it before, the Ajax, the armoured vehicle that the military have been investing heavily in. Now, there's no, I don't think there's any argument that the military have wasted £5.5 billion on this vehicle. Now, put that into context. That would be £60,000 per person. If they wanted to say, right, guys, instead of wasting 5.5 billion on a vehicle that doesn't work, we're just going to give you 60 grand per person. That's from private to sergeant major. What do you think the army would prefer? I'm going with 60 grand each. Not only did they fail with this vehicle, but the vehicle was so bad, the soldiers that trialled it, it was so loud they had burst eardrums and had to be discharged from the military. It's just ridiculous, guys. And I can suspect, although I've got no inside information on this, I can suspect this project failed because of secrecy, people not wanting to tell people things, people changing the goalposts, and when you're building these complicated systems, once you've got the requirement, fine. If you change a nut or bolt at this end, then you might have to change a whole gun turret at this end because, you know, all these systems are interdependent on each other. So that's what I'm thinking. This has happened, and this is why I think you know, the costs run out of control. I think there will have been requirements for CBRN equipment to be fitted after as an afterthought. I'm thinking there'll be things like electronic warfare that'll want to be fitted afterwards. So that means that has to have a higher strain on the batteries. If you have a higher strain on the batteries, you need to upgrade the engine. If you upgrade the engine, you need to upgrade the suspension. If you see where I'm going, guys, all these little things and add-ons, they had time and money, and I think this and when it comes out and it all becomes clear, I think this will be a good example. And I think, well, I'd like to hope that the military would look at this and say, right, guys, once we've got a requirement, we just leave it and let the company deal with it, because that's what happens, guys. All right, 5.5 billion wasted. That equates to £60,000 per person. I'm sure they'd rather have a bonus. Watchkeeper drone, you know, they hailed this as a huge, you know, Britain are now building their own long-range drones and it's going to be awesome. But guys, you know, it's actually being branded now as an unmitigated disaster. I can remember, hang on, my camera's not focused. Is my camera focused? Hang on. Yeah, I can remember going to one of these arms conventions and I met with some, I don't know, he was some RAF guy, he was in his uniform, I didn't really look at his rank. And I said to him, I think I've said this before, I said to him, I said, why have you gone for the rotary engine? The rotary engine, guys, go look at the rotary engine. They're probably the worst engine you could have for reliability, bar none. There's lots of problems, guys, I'm not going to go into the rotary engine. But, you know, he was talking about, you know, he gave me some waffle answer like officers do. But as it turns out, I was right, because the engine's plagued with problems, the aircraft can't fly in bad weather, and it's ridiculously overcost. Again, another 1.4 billion. Absolute wasted. So when all this kit and equipment fails, and which it will do, as you know, which we can see, you know, as well, the people are looking at making comparisons now between the Ukrainians building their own drones, like the MOD building their own drones, and Britain, who are paying vast amounts of money, changing the goalposts, changing, tweaking, doing things that they don't even understand, you know, and it's just an absolute failure. And they're looking and thinking, right, if our drones keep crashing, falling out the sky, we can't get spare parts, we can't service them, they're under license, how are we going to use these? And the reality and the simple answer is they're not. So all these pieces of equipment I've talked about now, really expensive, they're just not going to work. Ultimately, when all this kit fails, who's going to take up the slack? The private soldiers with rifles will take up that slack. So while we've got vast amounts of profit, well, not profit, we've got vast amounts of waste to these companies, we've got vast amounts of waste in every aspect, guys, okay? You know, the private soldiers at the bottom of the chain, at the bottom of this chain, they're going to be the ones who are going to have to take up this slack. And it all stems, guys, from weakness in government. And again, it started in the Blair years, you know, cuts and cuts and cuts, but it has literally just been going on and on and on. And all these cuts, excuse me, are there for winning votes. So, you know, nobody wants to be seen to be spending a lot of money on defence when there's no threat or whatever. You know, but as we can see now, that peace dividend's over. So ultimately all these cuts are going to end up with private soldiers on the ground, and they're the ones who are going to have to fight through. They're going to have to be the ones who do without the kit and equipment, and it's something I feel really strongly about and really passionately about. So look where we are today, guys, okay, with Russia. We have literally sold off most of our kit. We can't get an armoured vehicle under budget. We can't produce our own drones, and we are severely undersupplied in the military. Remember, guys, okay, remember what I said at the beginning. Peace brings weakness, and weakness brings war. The peace dividend has made us as a nation, you know, it's really weakened our army. And when we have a weak army, your adversaries want to strike. Absolutely terrible situation we're in. The only saving grace I feel that we have is our military and our infantry. We have a fantastic military. We have a fantastic, and I'm talking about the people now, we have a fantastic infantry. Now, I'm hoping in my head that Britain will not have to fight this war with Russia on its own. And what I'd like to think would happen would be that the British infantry would be used as strike forces, as projection forces, as forces that can strike, take enemy locations, and then leave, and then let the rest of the, let the rest of the NATO deal with the securing of it. We are living in absolutely wild times, guys, okay? Remember, peace brings weakness, weakness brings war. I'll see you guys later.